Alrighty then. Actually on page 46 already. Making progress. So question 1, I read yesterday, define your nightmare, the absolute worst that could happen if you did what you're considering. And the expansion of that is what doubt, fears, and what ifs pop up as you consider the big changes you can or need to make. Envision them in painstaking detail. Would it be the end of your life? What would happen? Well, what would be the permanent impact, if any, on a scale of 1 to 10? Are these things really permanent? How likely do you think that it would actually happen? That they would actually happen? That they're the bad things. So once again, envision what happens. Think about the worst. Go ahead this one time, be negative, think about the worst. And a lot of times when you put it under a microscope or magnifying glass, it's not really as bad as you had imagined, right? 2, what steps could you take to repair the damage or get things back on the upswing, even if temporarily? Chances are it's easier than you imagine. How could you get things back under control? What's the remedy? What's to solve the problem as if it's happening already? And once again, now you're ready. Like if you're cooking in the kitchen and there's a fire, if you thought ahead and said, what if there's a fire in the kitchen, and you had a fire extinguisher sitting there in the kitchen, right there under the cabinet, you're not really worried about a fire because you're prepared to deal with it. Same. 3, what are the outcomes or benefits, both temporary and permanent, of more probable scenarios? So you run through and say, what's likely to happen? Put a percentage on it, 40%, 60%. Doesn't have to be exact, just a general idea. What's the most likely outcome if you do this thing? Probable scenario. Now that you've defined the nightmare, what are the more probable or definite positive outcomes, whether internal, confidence, self-esteem, etc., or external? What would the impact of these more likely outcomes be on a scale of 1 to 10? How likely is it that you could produce at least a moderately good outcome? Have less intelligent people done this before and pulled it off? How many times have you said that where you're like, oh shit, if he can do it or she can do it, I can do it. Right? I mean, that's a real thing. There's all sorts of people out there with different levels of intelligence, different skill sets, and when they, real estate, taking the license, I've met a lot of licensees where if I had failed the real estate test, and I didn't, I passed it first time, but if I'd failed it, I would have been like, what the, like, I met some absolute frigging morons who got real estate licenses, so shit, if they can do it, I know I can do it. I know I thought that way. Absolutely. If you were fired from your job today, what would you do to get things under financial control? So that's just think if you lost that so-called security or stability you think you have and you really don't, what would you do? What's your plan for that? Because that way, if you choose to quit your job, you've got a plan, right? You're prepared. That's your fire extinguisher. Imagine this scenario. Run through questions 1 through 3 above. If you quit your job to test other options, how could you later get back on the same career track if you absolutely had to, right? You can always go back. And these concepts, let me just break off real quick here. These concepts are absolutely universal. What do I mean by that? They have more than one application. So I was speaking to one of my agents today. She has a deal closing tomorrow, and the other realtor was an asshole. Imagine that, right? That's never happened before. So we had to step in, we being Rob, my sales manager, and because he's there and he can make a phone call in America, right? So we got our heads together and came up with a strategy. He made a phone call, and all of a sudden the other realtor stopped being an asshole and apologized, right? Imagine that. So very rare that a broker has to step in, but in this case, we did. So I was talking to her, and she's Thai. This is the Thai lady I talked about prior on here, who's from south of Chiang Mai, and she and her husband and I were talking the other night once again about this deal that she has going, and he mentioned that they're coming to Thailand in November, so they'll be here for that Loy Krathong where you light the lanterns and they go up in the sky. It's beautiful. It's one of the most awesome things on the planet, and it's here in Chiang Mai where I live, so I'm pumped about that. I'm really looking forward to Loy Krathong this year. I already have the lanterns. I brought them with me from the Hong Song from Pai when I came down. So anyway, we were talking last night, they come in November. Now, I was talking to her this morning. Hey, did everything turn out? Since I was asleep during their day, when I woke up this morning, I called and said, hey, everything okay, right? Yes, everything's okay. They're closing tomorrow. The lady apologized, like I said, after we intervened, and everything's good. And then I said, so you guys are coming, in November. That's great. And she said, well, my one concern is that I would have to pull my daughter out of school. Now, that's the typical response, and that's a valid concern, and she cares very much about her daughter and her education. I've been reading this book. I read this book in the past, and I've been reading this book with you every day. So what do you think my immediate response was? What's better for your daughter? Coming abroad and being exposed to the culture and the life and the food and the people here, her heritage. Remember, her daughter is a dual citizenship, U.S. and Thai, right? So what's better for a half Thai woman, young woman, she's 11 years old, the daughter, than to come to Thailand? And the answer is nothing. Nothing's better than that. Not a year in American public school, which she's already had, and as it relates to this paragraph directly, she'll have again. They're not going to live in Thailand. Well, they might eventually live in Thailand, but they're going back to the States. They're going to come visit 3 months, 6 months, whatever. But the school that her daughter will miss will be made up for more than she's going to school in America is a 2 or a 3, especially at this point, because she's been in school in America, and she will be in school in America in the future, right? So she's not losing anything by coming to Thailand for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it winds up to be. She's gaining. She's gaining that experience from traveling. And as somebody who's traveled quite a bit, and as somebody who's been in the U.S. public school system, I unequivocally can say, without a doubt in my mind, 1,000%, traveling abroad builds a better, more well-rounded person than the U.S. school system. And once again, it's not a choice. It's public school, public school, public school, come to Thailand, public school, public school, public school in the U.S. So it's a break from it, not replacing it. And so to me, it was a no-brainer. And by reading books like this, you can see things like that. And the lady I'm talking about, Williams, she's a bright lady. She's smart. She's not stupid. But she just didn't have that view, right? She was afraid she was hurting her daughter by taking her out of school in public school in America. So once I explained it to her, she's like, lights came on. She got it. So once again, these things have applications in real life outside the examples that we give here, or the examples I talk about. If I hadn't spoken to her this morning, I wouldn't have been able to give that example. But that's a real world example of how this applies. What's the worst case scenario? You take her out of school. She lives abroad for 3 to 6 months and learns infinitely more amount of knowledge and experience, life experience, than she could in public school in Florida. So, yeah, real life experience. What are you putting off out of fear? Usually what we most fear doing is what we most need to do. The phone call, the conversation, whatever the action might be, it is fear of the unknown outcomes that prevents us from doing what we need to do. Define the worst case, accept it, and do it. I'll repeat something you might consider tattooing on your forehead. What we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. Yeah, I'm with you. As I have heard said, a person's success in life can usually be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. Absolutely. I'm an uncomfortable conversation guy. I mean, those of you who know me, that's my wheelhouse. That's where I live. Resolve to do one thing every day that you fear. I got into this habit by attempting to contact celebrities and famous business people for advice. Yeah, and he's made a living out of doing that, right? The 2 new books, the Tools of the Titans and Tribe of Mentors, both of those are books of interviews, and the blog that he has are interviews with successful people, because people want to watch that and learn from that. It's interesting. Yeah. He's made a career out of it because he enjoys learning like I do. So he's made it his career. Good for him. What is it costing you? This is number 6, financially, emotionally, and physically, to postpone action. Don't only evaluate the potential downside of an action, it's equally important to measure the atrocious cost of inaction, right? Lost opportunity cost is a thing, right? You have an opportunity and you don't take it. What's that cost you that you didn't take that opportunity? It's huge. It's real. It's a thing. If you don't pursue those things that excite you, where will you be in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years? People don't stop and look ahead often enough. That's a fact. How will you feel having allowed circumstance to impose itself upon you and having allowed 10 more years of your finite life to pass doing what you know will not fulfill you? My only regret is not coming to Thailand earlier. Right? I have very few regrets in my life. One of them is that I waited till 56 years of age to come here. I'm having a blast. It's awesome. I love it here. Should have come here earlier. Only regret, I didn't do it soon enough. Time keeps ticking. My cousin Vinny, Marissa Tomei. My biological clock is ticking. Great movie. If you telescope out 10 years and know with 100% certainty that it is a path of disappointment and regret, and if we define risk as the likelihood of an irreversible negative outcome, inaction is the greatest risk of all. Boom, 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 boom. Right, lots of booms. We're reading Timmy. What are you waiting for? If you cannot answer this without resorting to the previously rejected concept of good timing, I'm waiting for the right time. Yeah, we talked about that. No, there is no right time. The answer is simple. You're afraid, just like the rest of the world. Measure the cost of inaction, realize the unlikelihood and repairability of most missteps, and develop the most important habit of those who excel and enjoy doing so. And develop the most important habit of those who excel and enjoy doing so. Action. So, Timmy and I and other people, a lot of other people, are living the life of our dreams. We're doing exactly what we want. Society has given us a set of rules ever since we were young, and we're saying, no, fuck you. And pardon my bad language, it's part of who I am. It doesn't define me, but it's part of who I am. I accept it. I hope you do too. But we're saying fuck you to the rules that society gave us. We're not interested in playing by your rules. This is our game. This is our life, and we're going to play by our rules. So a lot of people don't naturally think that way. I think especially good people. If you're a kind-hearted, good person, you want to play by the rules. But when the rules are fucked up, you can't play by those rules and not be the best person you can be. And you, at the end of the day, you owe it to yourself to be the best person you can be. You owe it to yourself, not to me, not to Timmy, not to the government, not to the IRS. You owe it to yourself and your loved ones, people who count on you, people who rely on you, people who love you. You owe it to them, and you owe it to yourself to be the best person you can be. And if they're playing by the ubiquitous they, by their rules, makes you unhappy and doesn't let you be the best person you could be, the happiest person you can be, don't play by the rules. And I know that's shaking up your whole existence. I'm grabbing you by the shoulders and shaking it, and you might not like it, but at the end of the day, you'll realize I'm right. Or, like I've always said with Positive Action Plan, these thoughts, these things I'm putting out will help you advance. And some of you are like, okay, my spirit animal is a sloth. I don't want to advance. Okay, no problem. I'm okay with that. I'm not judging you. I'm not, angry at you. I'm not disappointed in you. If you want to be a sloth, be a sloth. It's cool. That's okay. That's you. You be you. You do you. I've always said that from day one. But I think most people want better. They want to be themselves, but they want to be a better version of themselves. That's why last year's book helps get you there, and this year's book definitely helps give you there. Once again, this is more of a how-to. Break it down into bite-sized chunks, and do this today. Do this today. Get your head right. We did that last year with Positive Action Plan. Now your head's right. Now you're ready to do this thing that we just read in these paragraphs. Do these things. The rules to change the rules. Apply them. Use it. Take action. Like we talked about last year. Last year it was all about take action, take action. Here's the action to take. Here's the recipe to make the dinner, the dish. And you deserve it. That's I think, one thing I haven't really heard Tim mention is a lot of people, they have fear, they have laziness, they have doubt, whatever. But a lot of them, what's sort of underneath that, underlying, is they don't feel like they deserve it. You deserve it. I'm here to tell you, you're a good person. You love yourself, you love other people. If you don't, you should. You need to work on that. But you deserve it. You absolutely deserve a better life. So take it. Make it a better life. How? By doing what we're talking about in these books. Y'all have a good day. Going food shopping. Refrigerator's empty. When you're out of frozen food, it's time to go to the supermarket, get my lazy ass out. And I've been busy. I've been busy, meeting people and stuff like that. So now today is Greg Day. I go out and go shopping, fill the refrigerator back up, and especially now my stove is working again. The guy came and fixed the stove, which had broke. And then Goo Gig, which once again, she's shy, and she's had my old phone for over a month now, probably 2 months. And it's like pulling teeth to get her to film her life. But I promised you a Goo Gig film, and I will give you a Goo Gig film. She's adorable, she's sweet, and she's Thai. She's typical Thai lady, and I really want to show you guys what that looks like, a day in the life of a Thai person. But getting her to video on I give her my old phone to video, and she's just resisting. She's shy. She doesn't want to be. She wants to be, but she's afraid. That's what we've been talking about for a month now, being afraid and overcoming it. So trying to help her get over her fear of being shy and being, putting a movie out there. She doesn't think she's interesting. And I keep telling her, you're very interesting. People want to see your life, but she doesn't think it's interesting because it's her life. She sees her life as very boring. And I'm like, no, it's different from people, around the world, in America, Europe. So it is interesting. So we'll see. I'll keep, she comes today. I'll talk to her again. Do you have film? Have you made film yet? You made film? You filmed breakfast, lunch, dinner yet? So that's that. Anyway, be good. Take care. I'm out.